They stole my lake, blocked the only access road with a truck, claiming it was now private HOA property. 40 years of fishing here. Suddenly I needed permission from these fake security guards in their little mall cop uniforms. They were charging fees for public land, like highway bandits shaking down travelers. I'm Thomas Morgan, retired, combat engineer. And what these criminals, and I use that word intentionally, didn't understand was the difference between a costume and competence. They thought they'd found easy targets in the elderly residents of lakefront estates. They were catastrophically wrong. If you've ever wanted to see fake authority get demolished by a blueprint and a hydraulic pump, this story will satisfy you completely. It started innocently enough. Monday looked like any other in 4 decades. Coffee before dawn, my gear checked. My grandson, little Eli, we call him the lieutenant, buzzing in the passenger seat. 3 generations of Morgan men had taken that same dusty path to the water with the same quiet hope. But the path was blocked. A lifted late-model Ford sat there like a deliberate angled insult. 2 guys in knockoff, faded uniforms were sprawled on the hood, smoking and smirking. The cooling tick of the engine meant they'd been there a while, waiting. "Grandpa, why can't we get through?" The lieutenant's voice carried that particular confusion children have when adults behave badly. I'd heard that tone in old reports from conflict zones. Kids who couldn't understand why their homes were burning. The difference was, this time, I could actually do something about it. Before I could respond, the bigger guy, big neck, small eyes, slid off the hood and swaggered over. His shirt read HOA Security, but the letters looked like they'd been printed at a strip mall. No badge numbers, no official insignia, no department ID, just pure costume shop intimidation. "Old man, turn your truck around and head home. This area is off limits now." His words hit Eli like a physical blow. His rod, clutched in small hands trembling with excitement, drooped toward the floorboard. "Grandpa, why can't we fish?" "We always fish on Mondays." The other guard actually laughed at an 8-year-old's confusion. "Because your grandfather's too poor to pay the access fee, kid." This ain't a charity. Something cold settled in my chest. Not anger, not yet. That would come later. This was the same methodical calm I learned in 35 years of engineering, where a wrong calculation meant a bridge failure or a convoy dying. These men had just made their first tactical error. They involved my grandson. I kept my voice flat, non-committal. I took inventory. Late model pickup, easy lift points, soft men, no radios, no professional discipline. The whole thing felt staged. "We'll be back," I told them, my voice carrying no heat, no threat, just a statement of mechanical fact. They exchanged glances, clearly disappointed by my lack of drama. They wanted a yelling match, something to justify their performance. I wasn't giving them that satisfaction. Not yet. Eli stayed quiet on the drive home, glancing occasionally at his unused fishing rod. Children understand injustice instinctively, even when they can't name it. As we pulled into the driveway, he finally spoke. "Grandpa, are we really not allowed to fish anymore?" I looked toward the workshop. Hydraulic rig, precision tools, decades of records in the house. Old engineers never truly retire. "Eli," I said, helping him down, "tomorrow might be different. Sometimes people think they have authority they don't actually possess. And sometimes those people need education about the difference." That afternoon, I spread the county records across my workshop table. Lake Clearwater. Designated permanent public access by County Resolution 847 in 1952. Donated specifically with deed restrictions preventing any private entity from limiting public access. Federal waterway protection under the Clean Water Act. State easement laws that superseded any homeowners association authority, real or imagined. Law is precise. Authority either exists or it doesn't. These men had none, and the sheer theater of it told me this wasn't ignorance. This was a scam. I made the first call to the sheriff. "Someone's blocked the public access road with a truck, claiming their HOA security." The dispatcher's response was immediate and frustrating. "Sir, is this an HOA dispute? We don't get involved in civil matters. You'll need to contact a lawyer." But I heard something else in her voice, resignation. Like this wasn't the first such call, which suggested a pattern. And patterns, in my experience, usually indicate planning. I spent the evening running system diagnostics on my main hydraulic unit, a military surplus powerhouse I'd acquired for retirement projects. It hummed to life with its familiar authority. The rig purred with steady, reliable pressure. I had lifted worse things in worse places. A Ford F-150 would not slow me down. Eli found me there, in the workshop doorway. "Grandpa, what's all that equipment for?" I looked at him, then at the machinery that represented decades of professional capability. "It's for solving problems, Eli, specifically problems involving objects that are in places they shouldn't be." He nodded with that seriousness children bring to adult conversations they sense are important. "Are you going to solve the lake problem?" I walked to my filing cabinet, pulling out the documentation. "Eli, what did I teach you about bullies?" "That they usually don't have the authority they pretend to have." "Exactly. And what do we do when someone claims authority they don't possess?" His 8-year-old face scrunched in concentration. "We check their paperwork. We check their paperwork. And if their paperwork is fake?" I gestured toward the equipment, where 3 decades of engineering expertise waited under dust covers. "We use the appropriate tools to restore proper order." The pattern established itself with military precision. Every morning at 7 sharp, the Ford took its position. By day 3, they'd added reinforcements. Day 4 brought escalation. A hand-painted sign. "Private property. No trespassing. $50 access fee." They had transformed public waterway access into a personal revenue stream. At precisely 10 a.m., I positioned my equipment with the methodical precision of someone who had built bridges under enemy fire. The hydraulic unit hummed as curious neighbors emerged from their houses, drawn by a sound that promised resolution to 2 weeks of systematic injustice. Blackwell stood beside his F-150, flanked by guards whose fake authority was about to meet certified engineering expertise. "Mr. Morgan, I'm ordering you to cease this unauthorized activity immediately." His voice carried less conviction than his expensive suit suggested. I looked up from connecting hydraulic lines to the truck's lift points. "Mr. Blackwell, this is a federally authorized operation to remove illegal obstructions. You don't have the authority to touch our vehicle." I reached into my documentation package and extracted the Army Corps of Engineers authorization, HOA environmental protection orders, and the county records dating to 1952. Actually, I have explicit federal authority under Title 33, Section 1203 to remove obstructions from navigable waterways when local authorities fail to act. The photographer moved closer, camera clicking rapidly as I spread the legal documentation across my trailer, like evidence in a criminal proceeding. A Deputy Miller rolled up, just as the first jack took weight. He read the packet I handed him without a word, then nodded. "You have authority. Keep your safety perimeter." "I'm recording." He turned to Blackwell. "Sir, produce your federal permits for blocking this access." Blackwell's composure evaporated. "This is private HOA property management. These people are interfering with legitimate community governance." "Actually," Deputy Miller replied, consulting my documentation, "waterway access interference is criminal regardless of claimed HOA authority. Sir, I'm going to need to see your federal permits for this security operation." While Blackwell fumbled through his briefcase for non-existent permits, I continued the systematic disassembly. The first hydraulic jack lifted the front axle 18 inches, creating access for the impact wrench. The mechanical precision was satisfying. "Geez," one guard muttered as the first wheel came free. "He's actually taking apart our truck." "Language, please," Mrs. Davis called out from her porch with a schoolteacher's authority. "There are educational processes in progress." The second front wheel joined its partner in a neat arrangement beside my trailer. I moved to the rear axle, positioning jacks for the optimal angle while explaining procedures to Eli, who watched from Mrs. Davis's porch. "Grandpa, why are you taking their truck apart?" "Because it's blocking public access illegally. When official channels fail to remove an object, a citizen with the proper authority and technical capability has the responsibility to restore legal order." Blackwell was making frantic phone calls to unknown superiors. "This is impossible. You can't just dismantle private property. It stops being private property when it's illegally obstructing federal waterway access," I replied, applying a cutting torch to the structural supports with a precision that left recovery impossible. 35 years of military engineering taught me that obstacles require permanent solutions, not temporary accommodation. The rear wheels joined the systematic display of removed components. Engine block, transmission, drive shaft, exhaust system, each part carefully extracted and arranged for optimal visual impact. The Ford F-150, that had symbolized 2 weeks of intimidation, was becoming an orderly demonstration of applied mechanical knowledge. That the news van from Channel 7 arrived as I began final frame disassembly. Reporter Jennifer Walsh approached with visible excitement. "Sir, can you explain what's happening here?" "Community restoration, through the proper application of federal law and engineering precision," I replied, continuing the cutting sequence. "When illegal obstructions appear on public property and bureaucratic channels fail to address the problem, qualified citizens have both the authority and obligation to restore legal order." The plasma cutter completed its work, reducing the truck's frame to neat sections that could never again block anything larger than a shopping cart. The bully's truck was gone. Blackwell stared at the transformation. "You've destroyed $50,000 worth of equipment." "I've removed an illegal obstruction from protected public property using federally authorized procedures," I corrected, powering down the hydraulic systems. The equipment destruction was a necessary consequence of its illegal positioning. "Perhaps next time you'll research proper authority before blocking waterway access." Eli broke free from Mrs. Davis's supervision and ran toward the lake access. "Grandpa, the path is open. We can fish again." Behind him, other neighborhood children followed, excitement bubbling up after being suppressed by intimidation. The newspaper photographer captured everything: piles of truck components, celebrating families, federal documentation, and one retired combat engineer who had solved a complex legal problem with a wrench and a blueprint. The FBI arrived Monday morning with search warrants based on my documented evidence of interstate fraud. Richard Black's organization had been running this exact scam for over 6 years, displacing hundreds of families. "Mr. Morgan," Agent Becky Clark explained, standing precisely where the truck had been, "your engineering solution provided the catalyst for comprehensive prosecution." Black faced federal charges for wire fraud, conspiracy, and interference with navigable waterways. State prosecutors filed parallel charges. His entire shell company network was frozen pending asset forfeiture. The following Wednesday morning, Eli caught his first base, a 2-pound largemouth that fought with determination. "Grandpa, do you think the fish knew we were fighting to come back?" "I think the fish knew their lake belonged to everyone." "Eli, sometimes it just takes the proper tools and legitimate authority to remind people about shared resources and community rights." 6 months later, the monument was finished. The engine block became a centerpiece sculpture, surrounded by the wheels arranged as pillars supporting a framework constructed from the frame sections. The inscription proved more challenging than the engineering. We settled on public access protected by citizens, maintained by physics, truck stripped for good 2025. Though Eli still insists we should have just added, "Don't block our lake." Black's sentencing hearing provided satisfying closure. The judge, Julie Williams, gave him a combined total of 19 years. "Mr. Black, the engineering solution applied by Mr. Morgan demonstrated more respect for law and community welfare than your entire criminal enterprise. Now, when Eli and I fish, there's a new rhythm. It's the rhythm of a community that learned to verify authority before accepting harassment." The Ford F-150 that had symbolized 2 weeks of community intimidation became a permanent reminder that fake authority eventually meets real competence backed by federal law. But that's just my story. This whole thing makes you wonder, doesn't it? What's the line? Where does a citizen's right to self-help and direct action begin when the system we rely on, the police, the local government, defaults to ignoring the problem? Was I right to take the law into my own hands, even with federal paperwork? Or should I have just waited another year for the civil process? Let me know in the comments below. What would you have done with that truck? Hit that like button and subscribe if you want to see more stories where the little guy uses brain power and a bit of horsepower to win back what's rightfully theirs. And don't forget to tell me, is there a similar HOA nightmare in your community right now?